I was sitting in the nursery, rocking slowly in the glider, one arm wrapped around Micah as he nursed against my chest. The light was low, the room quiet except for the soft rhythm of his breathing. His skin was warm, his little fingers curled around mine. For the first time all day, everything felt still, safe. I was exhausted, but I didn't mind. This was the part no one prepared me for, the deep, aching love that makes the sleepless nights worth it. Eli had just stepped into the shower. We were finally figuring things out. Micah was 5 weeks old and starting to fall into a rhythm. The hard part was supposed to be behind us. I thought we were getting our lives back. Then Eli's phone buzzed on the nightstand beside me. It vibrated once, then again. I reached over to flip it face down so it wouldn't wake Micah. I wasn't snooping. I didn't even think twice. It was instinct. As I turned it over, the screen lit up. A message appeared in full view. She doesn't suspect a thing. The baby looks just like me. My breath stopped. I froze, phone still in my hand. My body didn't move, but my mind raced in every direction. I read the message again. The baby looks just like me. She doesn't suspect a thing. My fingers tightened around the phone. My heart started to pound in my ears. I looked down at Micah's face. His cheeks were flushed from feeding, his eyes fluttering closed, content and peaceful. I studied his mouth, his nose, the curve of his brow. Then I looked toward the bathroom, toward the closed door and the sound of running water. My stomach twisted. I read the message again. Not once did it feel like a mistake. The words were sharp, intentional, impossible to ignore. I set Micah gently against my shoulder and stood, cradling him with one hand and gripping the phone in the other. I didn't walk toward the bathroom. I waited. I stared at the door until the water turned off and I heard the curtain slide. Eli came out with a towel wrapped around his waist, rubbing his hair with another. He saw the look on my face first, then the phone in my hand. His expression shifted instantly. The towel stopped moving. His whole body stilled. "What is this?" I asked. My voice was low, but it cracked at the edges. I didn't scream. I didn't need to. The words were enough. He didn't answer. "What is this?" I repeated, holding the screen up so he could see the message. His lips parted, but no sound came out. He looked at Micah, then at me. His eyes darted from the baby to the phone like he was scrambling for a version of the truth that might still save him. "I need you to tell me what this means," I said, "right now." He stared at me, frozen. Then slowly he lowered the towel from his head and sat on the edge of the bed. "Maya," he said, "I think Micah might not be yours." The room didn't spin. It stopped. The sentence didn't make sense. I blinked, thinking I had misheard him. "What did you just say?" He looked up at me, guilt pouring out of him. "I don't think Micah is your biological son." My knees gave out, and I dropped onto the rocking chair behind me, still holding Micah tight to my chest. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. My mind wouldn't let me process the words. I had carried this baby for 9 months. I had delivered him. I had fed him from my body. I had wiped his tears, soothed his cries, kissed his forehead while the world slept. What did he mean he wasn't mine? Micah stirred in my arms. I shifted him gently, whispering his name, trying to calm my shaking hands. I looked back at Eli, who now sat hunched forward, his hands covering his face. He hadn't said anything else. "Explain," I said, "now." And I knew, before he opened his mouth again, that everything I thought I knew about my family, my child, and the man I married was about to be torn apart. I never imagined my life would unravel this way. I used to think heartbreak came in loud moments, shouting matches, slammed doors, packed bags. But mine came quietly. It crept in during the calmest season of my life, when I thought I had finally arrived at the place I had spent years fighting to reach. My name is Micah Hart. I'm 30 years old, a teacher by profession, a mother by heart, and someone who always believed that honesty was the foundation of any real relationship. I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, in a small house on a corner lot with peeling paint and a front yard full of dandelions. My mom, Janice, raised me and my younger brother, Derek, mostly on her own after our dad left. She was tough in the way single moms often are, never asked for help, never let us see how hard it really was. Derek and I grew up close. He was the kind of kid who acted like nothing bothered him, but would secretly cry if someone hurt my feelings. As adults, that never really changed. He's the one who always shows up with takeout when I don't have the energy to cook, who makes dumb jokes when I want to scream, who reminds me to breathe when I forget how. I met Eli in college. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't the kind of guy who walked into a room and made heads turn, but he was steady, funny, thoughtful. We met in an English lit class. He offered me his notes when I missed a lecture. We started talking after class. It was slow, natural, easy, the way things should be. By the time we graduated, we were living together. 2 years later, we got married. It wasn't a big wedding, just close friends, family, my mom's backyard, and a dance floor made from rented wood panels that kept coming apart under our feet. Eli cried when I walked down the aisle. I thought that meant everything I needed to know about him. We talked about starting a family right away. It seemed simple. People made it sound simple. But it wasn't for us. We tried for over a year with no success. Every month that passed without a positive test felt like a personal failure. I began to believe there was something wrong with me. I watched friends post baby announcements and smiled through tears. I stopped going to baby showers. I couldn't stand the sympathy in people's eyes. The first miscarriage was early, 6 weeks. The second hit harder. 10 weeks along and we had already picked names. That one broke me in a way I couldn't put into words. I felt hollow. My body had betrayed me. My dreams were slipping further away with every passing month. Eli was supportive. He said all the right things, held my hand through the appointments, made jokes to distract me, cooked when I couldn't stand the smell of food. He said he didn't care how we had a family, adoption, surrogacy, whatever it took. He made me believe he meant it. We paused for a while, gave ourselves space to heal. Then, just when I had stopped hoping, it happened. I got pregnant. This time, the doctors said everything looked strong. The heartbeat was clear. The baby grew right on schedule. I was terrified with every passing week, but the fear was wrapped in hope. I talked to him every night, played him music, let Eli paint the nursery in pale green. The birth was long, over 20 hours of labor, and my body felt like it had been split open and stitched back together. But when they handed me that tiny bundle, I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. He was here. He was mine. We named him Micah. I remember looking down at him that night in the hospital, skin against mine, his heartbeat syncing with mine. I felt something shift inside me, as if all the broken parts had realigned. I thought, this is what it was all for. All the pain, all the waiting. This moment. Eli was there for every second. He held my hand through contractions. He cut the cord. He cried when Micah was placed in my arms. He stayed up that first night, feeding me spoonfuls of hospital pudding while I held our baby. I believed in that moment we had made it through the worst. The first weeks were a blur of sleepless nights, sore muscles, and constant feeding. I had no idea what I was doing, but I did it anyway, because that's what moms do. I would stare at Micah's face for hours, memorizing every eyelash, every yawn, every tiny noise. He was my entire world. Eli helped as much as he could, ran to the store, changed diapers, brought me tea while I nursed. He looked tired, like me, but I thought that was normal. Sometimes he stayed up late, alone in the living room, said he couldn't sleep. I didn't question it. We were new parents. Exhaustion made sense. Distance made sense. I didn't see it. Not even once. I didn't suspect. I didn't doubt. Because I had carried that baby. I had felt him move inside me. I had screamed through his birth. I had fed him, rocked him, breathed with him. There was no reason to believe he wasn't mine. Until the night his phone buzzed. Eli didn't speak right away after I showed him the message. He just stood there, damp from the shower, towel slung over his shoulder, looking like he wished he could disappear. The silence stretched between us, loud and sharp. "I'm only going to ask once," I said. "What does this mean?" His shoulders slumped. He sat down at the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, eyes to the floor. "I made a mistake," he said. The air in the room changed. My stomach tightened. I took a step closer, holding Micah tighter. My arms felt heavy. What kind of mistake? He didn't look at me. It happened when we stopped trying, when we took that break. I didn't think we were going to try again. You said you were done, that you needed space. So I I slept with someone. I blinked. My throat dried instantly. What does that have to do with this text? With Micah? She got pregnant, he said. She didn't tell me at first. Then, a few weeks before you gave birth, she showed up. She had the baby. She said it was mine. She said she didn't want to keep him, that I should take him. My heart began to beat faster. The room tilted slightly. You're telling me, I said slowly, that while I was in labor, you were arranging to bring me another woman's baby. I didn't know what else to do, he said. I panicked. You were already in the hospital. Everything was happening so fast. When I saw him, he looked just like me. I thought maybe we could raise him as ours. You thought I wouldn't notice? My voice rose. Micah stirred in my arms. I adjusted him, cradling his head protectively. I thought it would be better than losing everything, Eli said. I thought you'd love him anyway. And you did. That's not the point, I said. You let me believe he came from my body. You watched me bleed for this child. You let me nurse him, name him, love him. And you said nothing. He looked up finally. I didn't know for sure. I kept telling myself maybe it wasn't true. Maybe he really was ours. I kept waiting for the right time to say something, but it never came. Micah let out a soft cry. I kissed the top of his head and walked out of the room. I didn't pack right away. I just stood in the hallway, my back pressed against the wall, trying to hold myself together. My mother's voice echoed in my mind, calm and certain. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. I didn't want to believe this version of Eli, the one who lied, the one who brought home another woman's child and passed him off as ours, the one who let me fall in love with a lie, but I did believe him now. I called my mom, told her I needed to come over. I didn't tell her everything, just enough. She didn't ask questions. She just said, I'm on my way. When she arrived, I was sitting in the living room rocking Micah back and forth. She looked at my face, then at Eli's standing behind me, and she didn't need an explanation. She helped me pack a bag, whispered something to Micah, and held my hand while I put him in the car seat. Back at her house, I put Micah down to sleep in the guest room crib and stood by the door for a long time, watching him breathe, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. I tried to see something, anything, that would tell me what to believe, but the truth was, I didn't know. I had carried a baby for 9 months. I had felt every kick. I had screamed through labor, and yet the child in that crib might not be mine. I ordered a DNA test the next morning, one for me, one for Eli, one for Micah. I wanted answers, not theories. I needed something concrete. I contacted a private lab. I wanted results fast. I swabbed Micah's mouth while he slept, hating myself for what I was doing, but knowing I had no choice. Then I started digging. I checked Eli's phone again, found the number the message came from. I looked it up. A name popped up in one of the search results. Erin Caldwell. I didn't know her, but the name made my stomach turn. I wrote it down. Called Eli's sister, Lena. She picked up after 2 rings. Do you know someone named Erin Caldwell? I asked. Silence. Then a soft exhale. Yeah, she used to be my roommate in college. Why? She's the woman Eli cheated with, I said, and she claims Micah is her son. Oh, God, Lena whispered. Maya, Erin was obsessed with having a baby, even before she was in a relationship. She talked about motherhood like it was her entire identity. She would have done anything to be a mom. My chest tightened. Could she have switched babies? I don't know, Lena said. But if anyone would be capable of something like that, it's her. I hung up and stared at Micah's sleeping face. I didn't know whose child he was, but I knew what I had to do. The morning after Lena confirmed who Erin was, I sat alone in the kitchen while Micah napped in the next room. My mom had gone to the store, and the silence in the house felt unfamiliar, almost heavy. I hadn't really eaten, hadn't slept more than an hour at a time since everything happened. I just sat there turning Erin's name over in my head like a piece of broken glass. Every angle hurt. My phone vibrated. A notification from the DNA lab. The kits for Micah and me had been received. Results would take 5 days. I stared at that number. 5 days until I'd know whether or not the child I had carried, birthed, and loved was mine. I thought about the delivery. I remembered every contraction, every scream. I remembered Eli holding my hand, the nurses cheering me on. I remembered when they placed a baby on my chest. I didn't remember anyone else entering or leaving the room. I didn't remember faces clearly, just pain and tears and relief. But now all of it felt clouded. That night, I couldn't stop staring at Micah while he slept. I stroked his hair, kissed his forehead, held his tiny fingers in mine. I whispered to him, "You're still mine, no matter what." But the questions never stopped. Why would Erin give her baby to Eli? How did she even know when I was giving birth? Could someone have actually switched the babies at the hospital? Did Eli know more than he was saying? I was done sitting in the dark. I called Lena again. I asked for Erin's last known address. She hesitated but then said, "She used to live in a duplex near Hawthorne Street. She might still be there." I wrote it down and made a decision. I was going to see her. I asked my mom to watch Micah for a couple of hours. She didn't ask questions. She saw the determination on my face and nodded. I drove across town with my hands locked on the steering wheel and my jaw clenched. My heart pounded the whole way. When I reached the house, I sat in the car for 5 minutes just staring at the front door. Then I got out. The building looked worn down, paint peeling, windows cracked. I knocked once, then again. After a long pause, the door opened. A woman stood in the doorway. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles, thin frame, blank expression. But her eyes, those were familiar. They looked like Micah's. "You're Erin," I said. She nodded slowly. "You must be Maya." "Where's my baby?" She didn't flinch. "He's safe. He's with someone who took care of him for me." I stepped closer. "You switched our babies at the hospital. You knew I was in labor and you gave Eli your child and took mine." "I didn't take him," she said. "I gave him to someone I trust. I couldn't keep him. I didn't want to be a mother like that. I didn't want him to grow up around confusion." "You had no right," I said. "You had no right to play God with our lives." "I gave you a son," she said. "And you loved him, didn't you? You didn't even notice he wasn't yours." I stepped back, stunned by her lack of remorse. "You need help." Erin shrugged. "Maybe. But I gave you what you wanted." I turned and walked away. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just walked to the car and called the police. I filed a report. I gave them everything I had. Eli's confession, the text message, the DNA kit confirmation, Erin's address. They took it seriously. A detective followed up with me within 24 hours. A formal investigation began, including hospital records and potential criminal charges. 2 days later, the DNA results came back. Micah was not my biological son. The words didn't hit me all at once. They moved through me slowly, breaking me in pieces. I held the paper in my hand and looked at Micah sitting on the carpet, playing with a rattle. He looked up and smiled. He had no idea what was happening. No idea his entire world was being rearranged by paperwork and adult mistakes. He wasn't born from my body, but I had been the one to hold him through every feeding, every fever, every lonely night. My body had fed him. My arms had rocked him to sleep. My soul had chosen him before I even knew what I was choosing. I called the detective. I gave him the name of Erin's friend who had the baby. Lena had remembered a name, a last known workplace. Within days, they located the woman and tested the child in her care. He was mine. They called me when the results came in. My biological son, Noah, was safe. He was healthy, and he would be returned to me after formal custody paperwork cleared. The day I held Noah for the first time, I cried so hard I couldn't speak. He was so small, so familiar in a way that felt buried inside my DNA. I kissed his cheek and promised I would never let anyone take him from me again. But even as I held him, I thought of Micah. Because I hadn't just found one son. I had to find a way to fight for both. Holding Noah for the first time was nothing like I expected. I had imagined fireworks, music swelling in the background, some overwhelming surge of recognition. But what I felt was stillness, a grounding, breath-catching stillness. As if my body had been waiting to complete a sentence it never finished. He looked like me. I could see it right away. His eyes, the shape of his mouth, the way his fingers clenched and unclenched just like mine when I was anxious. But it wasn't just the biology that hit me. It was the quiet sense of rightness. I had missed 6 weeks of his life, and yet he relaxed against me like we had never been apart. The state placed him in my custody temporarily while the case moved through court. I took him home and laid him beside Micah in the crib. Micah reached over in his sleep and placed a hand on Noah's arm. I stood there in the doorway, watching my two boys sleep next to each other, and I felt my heart break open again, but in a way that finally allowed light in. I didn't get to celebrate Noah's birth. I didn't get his first smile or his first stretch or his first cry, but I had him now. I had a second chance. Micah woke first the next morning. He rubbed his eyes and stared at Noah for a long time, then pointed and said, "Baby." I nodded and pulled him into my arms. He didn't understand what had happened. He didn't know the world had shifted. He just knew he was loved. But the world outside our home didn't pause for us to catch up. The legal system moved slowly. Erin was arrested. She was charged with kidnapping, medical fraud, obstruction, and child endangerment. Her friend, the nurse who had taken Noah, was charged too. They both denied parts of the story at first, but DNA tests, text messages, and medical records left little room for lies. The judge ruled that I would retain full custody of Noah, with permanent parental rights restored. Micah's case was harder. Legally, he was the biological child of Erin and Eli. Erin was out of the picture, facing serious charges, and Eli, despite everything, was still Micah's father. That gave him a right to custody. But I couldn't accept losing Micah. I had raised him. I had comforted him in the middle of the night, taken him to every pediatric appointment, been the only mother he had ever known. My lawyer filed for de facto parent status, an argument based on caregiving, bonding, and best interest of the child. We presented photos, medical records, witness statements. My mother testified, so did Derek. Even Lena submitted a written statement, confirming that I had been the only maternal figure in Micah's life. Eli fought back at first. He wanted full custody. He said I had manipulated the situation, that I should have trusted him. But his argument was weak. The court saw what he had done, concealing a birth, allowing a switch to take place, and deceiving me through it all. His credibility was gone. After months of hearings, the judge ruled in my favor. I was granted joint custody of Micah with full physical custody. Eli would get supervised visitation, and only if he completed parenting classes and complied with all court orders. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what I had wanted, but it was enough. It was a door kept open for a child who still deserved to know where he came from and to stay where he was loved. I brought both of my sons home. I decorated their shared room with matching blankets and new name decals on the wall. Noah and Micah, side by side, the beginning of something real. At night, I sat between their cribs and read them stories. Noah would fall asleep quickly, calm and easy. Micah would fight sleep, always needing one more sip of water, one more song, one more reassurance. And I gave it. I gave everything. Not because I had to, because I chose to. People asked me if it was strange, raising a child who wasn't mine by blood while getting to know the one who was. But the truth is, love doesn't care about genetics. Love grows where you water it. Micah was mine because I had been there when it mattered. Noah was mine because I had fought to find him and never let go. They both belonged to me, and I belonged to them. Some nights, I thought about what might have happened if that text never appeared. If I had never picked up Eli's phone, I might have lived my whole life never knowing. I would have loved Micah completely, never questioning anything. And maybe I would have been happy, but I would have never known Noah, and Noah deserved more than a what if. They both did. That message, so cold, so careless, had shattered my world. But it also cracked it open wide enough for me to rebuild it, with truth, with choice, with both of them in it. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal or the custody battle, or even the weeks I spent unsure if I would ever hold my real son again. The hardest part was learning how to let go of the life I thought I was living and still find meaning in the one I was building. Noah adjusted quickly. He was quiet, easy to soothe, curious about everything. He took to me as if we had never been separated. That kind of bond doesn't always need time. It just needs truth and presence. Every night when I rocked him to sleep, I felt something settle in my chest. He was safe. He was home. So was I. Micah took longer. He grew clingier in those first few weeks after coming back home. He cried more when I left the room, woke up in the middle of the night calling for me, refused to sleep unless my hand was on his back. He didn't understand court dates or custody agreements. All he knew was that the woman who sang him to sleep and kissed his bruises had suddenly disappeared and then come back. So I showed up for him over and over until he believed I wouldn't leave again. I often thought about how close I came to losing both of them, how fragile motherhood can feel when it's built not just on biology but on trust. And when that trust breaks, how much harder you have to fight to hold on to what's real. People asked me, "How didn't you know Micah wasn't your biological son?" I used to feel ashamed of that question, but now I answer it without hesitation. Because I trusted the system, I trusted my husband, I trusted what I saw in front of me. I had just gone through 21 hours of labor, stitches, and blood loss. I was exhausted, emotional, overwhelmed. When a nurse placed a warm baby against my chest and told me he was mine, I believed her. He latched, he cried, he looked into my eyes and held my finger. Every instinct in my body screamed, "This is my child." And for 5 weeks, he was, in every way that matters. I didn't see a stranger when I looked at Micah. I saw the baby I sang to in the hospital. I saw the face that calmed when I whispered his name. That connection didn't vanish when the DNA results came in. It deepened, because I realized love is not tied to a bloodline. It is tied to sacrifice, to consistency, to presence. I divorced Eli. I didn't do it with a dramatic speech or a bitter heart. I did it quietly through a lawyer with full custody papers already prepared. He didn't fight me. Maybe he knew he had already lost everything that mattered. Maybe he finally understood the damage he caused. But I didn't wait for his apology. I didn't need it anymore. He gets supervised visits with Micah, but he rarely shows up. When he does, Micah barely recognizes him. That's its own kind of justice. Not cruel, just honest. As for Erin, she went to trial. Her sentence was harsh and deserved. She never apologized either. She never showed remorse. The woman who thought she was giving me a gift never understood that love, built on lies, doesn't survive. I focus on my boys now. Noah is starting to talk. His first word was light. He points at lamps, the sky, anything bright, and says it proudly like he discovered it himself. Micah is louder, more expressive. He narrates everything. He tells people at the grocery store, "That's my brother. He's smaller, but I'm faster." They share a room. They fight over toys. They giggle in the dark when they're supposed to be sleeping. I often find them curled up together under the same blanket by morning. Watching them reminds me that something beautiful was salvaged from something broken, that my story isn't just about betrayal, it's about the fight to keep what's real, and the choice to love even when it's hard. I used to think being a mother meant giving birth. Now I know better. Being a mother means showing up. It means staying up when you're too tired to think. It means choosing someone else's needs over your comfort. It means knowing that even if the world questions your place, your child never will. I carried Noah in my body. I carried Micah in my heart. And today, I raise both of them side by side. Not because they were handed to me, but because I refuse to let either of them be taken away. This is my family. Not the one I planned, but the one I claimed. If this story stayed with you, even for a moment, I'd love for you to let me know. Click the like button. Share it with someone who believes that love is more than biology, and leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever had to fight for something that felt like it was yours, even when the world said it wasn't? And if you want more stories that speak to the strength we don't always know we have, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's more coming. Real voices, real heartbreak, real hope. Thank you for watching. I'm Maya, and this was my story.